Today on Spirit Outspoken, we're joined by Pete Nunnally, Episcopal priest and author of Catching Hope, The Hidden Spiritual Wisdom of Fishing, coming out May 12th. In this conversation, Pete shares about his wilderness church, worship in the wild, and how rivers, forests, and open skies become sacred spaces. Together, we explore how nature reveals the presence of God, what the future of the church might look like, and how we can thoughtfully broaden our understanding of traditional doctrine while staying rooted in faith. If you've ever felt closer to God under the trees than under a steeple, this one is for you. And with that, let's dive in. So I just have to tell you that I absolutely love your page and the content you put out, and your energy and your spirit is just so beautiful and so peaceful, so unifying and grounding in a time that feels incredibly heightened and crazy right now. And I really just feel, I want to say I feel Jesus when you talk. It just always is a breath of fresh air and just like what I need to hear in that moment. So if people don't follow you already, I would highly recommend that they do, because I just love having that kind of come through as like a really beautiful grounding presence in my feed when everything else can feel so aggravated and intense and alive right now. So thank you for everything you put out there, because it's
Yeah.
it's really important and meaningful to a lot of people.
Thank you. And it means a lot. It's a hard time, as we all know. And it's a hard time to be a content creator, which is not what I think I am.
I know. What we
Um,
gotta call it something different. I know. Like, we struggle with that term too.
yeah, like I'm an Episcopal priest. I would say I'm a pastor, a community builder, fisherman, writer, and I struggle with the tension between speaking the truth, which needs to be spoken more than ever, especially with this like copyright infringement on our faith by nationalists. So I think it's very important to say, like, that's not who we are. And I also think it's important to try to bring the truth of our faith in the way that you guys do too. And I love what, like, your chemistry is so great. Like, oh my God, best friends. You so awesome. And you have so much fun. Like, we forget that like a life of faith can be enjoyable and
Yeah.
joyful. And we need that more than ever. So thank you for doing what you do. And
Mm.
I wrote my senior thesis in seminary on theological trauma, because
Oh.
there are a lot of people in my life who have been hurt by the church in different ways. Some hard trauma, some soft trauma, which is honestly the pollution in the American Christian air supply of this bullshit theology that says that Jesus is some kind of G.I. Joe superhero, America first, moneybag Santa Claus that's going to give you your wildest dreams and keep all of the brown people out of America if you just say magic words. And that's a kind of soft trauma, because then people will never get to experience what you guys are building, which is like a spiritual community that's deeply rooted in Jesus, but expansive in a way that even a progressive American church, and I'm an Episcopal priest. I love our tradition, and it still shackles God, which is part of why I started an outdoor church. But thank you, and I'm super humbled and happy to be here with the two of you.
Okay, so I had a whole host of other questions that
I
I
know.
wanted to ask you,
I
but
knew
it's
you
so
got Rachel's attention. I knew it. I knew it.
Okay.
I have been saying to Jasa that I really want to do some more research and find someone who can speak to us about religious trauma. And can you just share, and we'll get to everything else about the Wilderness Church and all of that, because I just think it's beautiful and a really cool thing that some people may not have been exposed to, or ideas of where to find God and what that looks like. So I definitely want to get there. But I am intrigued by this whole religious trauma thing. So can you, I don't know, talk to us a little bit about that? Tell us a little bit more about what you learned, how it's impacting people, signs of religious trauma, all sorts of that stuff. I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, it's personal to me. I kept dating people who were hurt by the church. And I'm a lifelong Episcopalian, so a lot of people find like our liturgy and the ancient rituals really comforting and grounding for them, especially if they're coming from an evangelical background where it's like rock show, TED talk, and you go home, and then they find us and they're like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. But because I came from there, I see our tradition, which can be generative in a different way. So I'm trying to push us out and
Mhm.
expand, and like the real meanings of what we do in our service is really lost on a lot of people in the pews, I think. One example would be you go to an Episcopal church for 20 years, 30 years, you raise your kids there. And then at some point, Donald Trump comes along and you're like, that's my guy. Well, the church needs to understand that there's no way that anybody should say, in the second term at least, that's my guy. So something we're doing in church is off. But the trauma stuff, it's personal to me because, like I said, I would date people and I'd be like, no, 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 the church is cool. Like, I get it. Those people are wrong. But there's a lot like you love me, and this is a very egotistical thing to do. Please don't ever do this. Like, if you love me, then you'll love this thing that made me. And I've eventually learned that that's not true. But I had really up close and personal experiences with people that I love who really did have horrible experiences in the church. And it's like, well, yeah, that would make me throw all of this out.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
Mhm.
what we do have, and we're all trying to grasp onto, is this thing that does give life. I grew up going to and working at an Episcopal summer camp where everything was outside, and the nature was a part of our worship and a part of our life together. But the whole point of the camp wasn't to learn how to ride horses or sail boats. It was to show growth as the body of Christ together. Um, and it's just this really incredible, loving community that we all created together. And then my friends that I worked with and went to camp with, most of them don't go to church because they're like, Pete, I believe in God. I had this experience at camp. And it's not just because we were young. Um, it's because we were trying to build beloved community together. And
Mhm.
then I go to church and they're like, I don't really get anything out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't go to church anymore. Or they they're so uncomfortable claiming something because of what everybody else says about God and Jesus that they
Mhm.
stay away from it. And I think that's a kind of soft trauma where you don't want to be associated with the fucking nut. Sorry,
No, we swear all the time. It's fine.
It's fine.
We're
bleep
the
that out.
only spirituality podcast that has an explicit rating, just
Yeah.
so you know.
You're in a safe zone here. It's all good.
You can drop
Yeah,
F-bombs.
well,
That's fine.
if you can, please, I'll try to
No, well,
control myself. But
yeah.
but it's a very real thing. And then I started going to the Wild Beast Festival, which I think I told you guys about
Yeah,
in
yeah,
I want to
email.
know
that
more
looks
about that.
super cool.
Kept meeting people and I'm like, this is like 2020, 2021, and I'm meeting people who got kicked out of their church because they're gay. And I'm like, how is this a thing?
I know.
Like,
Yeah, I
how is
know.
this still a thing? It's
I
getting
know.
worse, not better. And I'm just so inspired by people who take the hit and are like, I don't want to let go of all this. And we call it deconstruction. I think a term I'd like to see used more is transformation.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yes.
instead of totally deconstructing something, I get where that comes from. But really, what I think we're all hoping for is transformation. Whether we are born and raised in the church and are like, some of the stuff is still not good, God still needs to work on me and transform me, or if you're moving from like this arch conservative bullshit purity culture theology and saying, I want to transform that. God help me do that, to this more life-giving, expansive vision of um, a beautiful life. So
Yeah.
That,
We've talked about that. I think what you're saying is so true because Jason and I actually are starting this new community called Spirit 360. And we called it that because we said we found that in our own journey, what started as, call it deconstruction, was actually more of a reconstruction, right? Of questioning maybe some things that we had taught or looking at things and really doing the research and understanding it ourselves. That only led us back to where we had started, but with a whole new, beautiful, fresh perspective. And that's really what we're, trying to help people see. Like, you don't have to fear this process because it doesn't mean that you have to lose Jesus or walk away. And in fact, it can actually strengthen and deepen your ties and your faith overall. So I love that distinction.
I I do too. One thing when you were talking about transformation in nature, I feel like a lot of people that get sort of disenchanted with Christianity is the rigidity around like God spoke once and it's in a Bible and it was a point in time. And who cares if it doesn't really totally answer the questions that you have today in a society that exists 2,000 years later, right? Like, forget all what we know about how the Bible actually came to be and how man's hands are all over it, right? Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think like where I have gotten hung up is that, and this is where your term transformation really sort of struck me, is because like that insinuates ever changing, right? Like we are always changing. We are, when you're done transforming, you're dead. Okay. So like you don't want to be done transforming. And then I think about nature. Like nature is God's creation. It's not static. It is always changing. There are different seasons. It's blooming, it's cold, it's this, it's that, right? Like it is constantly evolving and changing. So if we were to look at almost like, I don't know, a mirror of what we are inside, if we're God's creation, it is always changing. So we have to assume that like God's word can evolve and change too. And like what you're saying about deconstruction, it's like I always got kind of hung up on that too, because it's like you're just sort of like deconstructing this one thing. You're going back and say, okay, what is this thing that I'm not really into anymore? Versus being like, wait, there is a whole world outside of this where I can see Jesus in you, I can see Jesus in that, in all of the places we were told not to look because it wasn't necessarily in this book in this point in time, right? So like that's our new word. We're transforming, you guys. We're deconstruction's out,
Yeah.
transformation in. Okay,
We should put that on a coffee mug or a
Yeah.
yeah,
t-shirt or
that's
something.
right.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And you're right. I mean, um, and I think this is where like my tradition gets stuck and mainline traditions get stuck is they're like, yeah, but you got to do it this way. I
Yeah.
mean, I hear it all the time. I'm doing an outdoor church. We did it. I live streamed in the snow a few weeks ago. We had this massive snowstorm and
I saw
even
that,
the
by the way.
national, huh?
I saw that. I
Oh,
was
you did?
like, that is some serious dedication.
I'm walking there by myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? Um,
Here
like,
we
why am
go.
I doing this?
You're in the
Like,
wilderness.
but I tell you, as soon as we clicked on, um, like magic happened. That you never know what's going to happen when you show up.
Oh,
And
I
that's
love
one
that.
of the really cool things about doing something outside in the wild place. So I always say, I chose and we still meet at a place that's really wild. Not a, some people, it's not inside church done outside next to, Jason, I'm going to get to your point in a second. Maybe it's just ADHD. I need your
No,
help.
we have it too. So what we're
You're
right
in
along
good
with you.
company.
We don't know where we're going either.
Just
So
wait. It'll get weird on here at some point in
yeah,
time with all three of us. I mean, we're going to be all over the board. It's
It'll
all
get
good.
weird.
keep up, people.
All right. But I didn't want to do inside church outside. So we're off book. The communion Eucharist is really important. It's the center of our worship. And I tell the story of salvation in my own words. Because what if we have somebody who's got some nature-based spirituality and they're not really sure about Jesus?
Mm.
How are we going to talk about the point of Jesus, which doesn't really come up in a regular service? But also, like if you're next to the church outside and doing something just regular, straight out of the Book of Common Prayer, which is an amazing gift, um, you're not really opening yourself up to what's possible and what might happen. And in the same way, though, like we wanted to get as far away from man-made stuff as possible. So we worship in this wild forest that goes right up into the Potomac River. It's actually in DC, and most people don't know about it. Like when the trees fall, nobody moves them. And so they just slowly give themselves back to the ground, which is what this whole thing is about, is death leading to life.
Mm.
And that the ecology and the environment itself is a living thing. And when you worship in a totally wild place, then it's uncontrollable. And God is uncontrollable. And we'd like to try to make God as small as possible so we can know what's coming next.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And so we make ourselves as vulnerable as possible. Um, I mean, it was cold last Sunday. It was really
Like, how
cold. It
cold is
was
cold for you?
Yeah.
We're
rainy.
in Minnesota. Okay, so like
Oh
we're gonna judge
God.
you right now.
All right. Well, and this is a very high judge zone. Um, Spirit Outspoken is known for that,
Yeah.
and your audience expects it. The wind chill was around 5 degrees.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's cold.
That's cold.
that's legit cold, right?
That's legit cold.
And
Single digits, we respect that.
Mhm.
I knew I couldn't go anything
If you
higher
had a
than
negative before that 5, we would be like, "Okay, now we're
I
talking."
was gunning for it. I was hoping it would be, and it got a little warmer.
Oh, shoot.
Um, but actually, the cold isn't the hot worships are even harder because you can't take your skin off.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, you can always
totally.
put more on. Yep.
Absolutely.
But can I give you a couple of examples of like this
Absolutely.
earth? Sally McFague wrote a book called The Body of God. And the central thesis is that the earth itself is the body of God. Uh,
Ooh.
and I had often said before I read that book that the natural world is the body of Christ made manifest in creation. And so, God, can you imagine how we would relate to this earth if we really thought it was the body of Christ and the body of God? But it really is. It is insanely vulnerable. The trees will not prevent you from cutting them down. The rivers you can dam up if you want. It doesn't prevent you from doing that. But in the long run, nature always wins. And I saw that firsthand. I did for years hurricane recovery work after Katrina
Mm.
in New Orleans. I lived there for 5 or 6 years, and saw firsthand how powerful the natural world can be, especially if
Yeah.
we don't build our levees in the right way. But so in the natural world, you have this regeneration. We take so much for granted, the miracle that is this earth. We need
Mhm.
sunlight, soil, and water. And then food comes out of the ground for us and for everybody else. And then when we die, we go into the ground, we become soil, and then we become fertilizer to help other stuff grow. Like, this is a miracle that we are
It
all living in all the time. And it's
Absolutely.
unreal when you start to think about it. It's how we are caught in the middle of infinity. Zooming out, we still don't know how far the universe is. We know it's expanding, but it's infinitely large. And then going down into the cellular level, like there's levels we don't know about yet because we just
Mm.
don't know how to get there. We are caught in the middle of infinity on a world and on a planet that regenerates life itself and brings food to us with simple things like sun and soil and water. And then death always leading to life over and over and over again. Like it's it is a miracle.
like I think about that all the time, right? And it's like, I swear, people must think like I just smoke joints and start talking because I'll be like, "You guys,
Do you?
well."
Only on the
they're more of the
weekends.
gummy variety. I'm too busy to roll joints now, okay? No, but seriously, like, I will just be, like, sledding with my kids, and they all think I'm nuts, but, like, one of them is kind of into this when I talk like this, but I'll be like, "Just out there in the blue. It just goes forever and ever and ever, and we are here together. We found each other. We had this special moment. What you're saying is so true. Like, it's not just how we treat the earth, although that's like such a big part of it. And it's just a complete travesty. And the earth is turning on us. I mean, we see it. Like, we see what we're doing to it. And the wildfires and the hurricanes. And, it's clear that what you reap is what you sow, like
Mhm.
we're getting back exactly what we're putting out. But even beyond that, it's like our world, our not the physical world, but the way that we act and interact is just like hustle and bustle and money and grind and climb this ladder and try to get there and try to feel self fulfilled. That we're just like missing it. We're missing the miracles around us and we're missing just the miracle of existence. And it's hard to wrap your head around it because it's so expansive. But it's really like in these fine little noticeable details is where you see God. And I think sometimes people want this like perfect little box and I want rules and I want this guarantee. If I do these things, then I'll go to heaven. It's like you're kind of missing heaven now. Like you're missing the opportunity to exist in a beautiful world and a beautiful perspective right now because you're spending so much time operating in fear and operating under these like worldly goals that we just miss it entirely. And we think, okay, sometime in the distant future, I will be able to see God's beauty. And to me, that's like such a bummer, you know?
Yeah, it's a total bummer. Um, yeah, you're so right.
Maybe you guys need to smoke a joint for that little monologue.
No, I was with you. I was with you the whole time.
Yeah,
Um,
I was there. I was on the ride with you. I was buckled in and
yeah.
going. I
Okay,
liked it.
I was just
Well, you're
checking.
talking
Just
about wonder,
quick
and
Yeah.
vibe check. Yeah.
awe and wonder are a part of this whole thing, and gratitude.
I
Mhm.
know.
You can't be an asshole and be a grateful person at the same time.
I know.
Like, you can't do it because
Yeah.
gratitude dispels all that stuff and dissolves it. And to be grateful for just the simple things on this earth is so important. And it's hard. It's not easy because we do get pushed to do certain things. We want our kids to be happy. We want maybe a new promotion or to sell a bunch of new books coming out May 12th.
I know. I want to hear about your book.
Pre-order is available. But one of the things that works for us is to put ourselves in the graft our worship onto the ongoing worship of nature, which is just nature being itself.
Mhm.
It is being what God made, and it's harder for us to be what God made us to be. But we bring ourselves into that place, and then you never know what's going to happen. But something always does. 2 days ago, we were out there. It was very cold and rainy, but we had a few folks come anyway, and there was snow all over the place, and fog started rising off the river. And
Oh,
oh my God, it
okay.
was so mysterious and mystical, and it just kept getting thicker and thicker. And of course, the readings I don't make the readings up. Like, it's from the Revised Common Lectionary. They're set aside as 3-year rotation. Most mainline churches use them. Was all about the cloud that covers the mountain.
No.
Jesus is up there with
Oh.
Elijah and Moses, and there's the transfiguration, and then a voice comes from the cloud. This is my son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. Like, that was the reading, and we're in a literal cloud. Like, he just that symmetry doesn't happen by accident.
No.
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 And but you have to believe that it is not an accident. And when I talk to people, Christians who have been going to church for 30 years, I say, "Where did you find God?" And they'll say, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it was just a coincidence." And I'm like, "Stop right there."
Yeah.
The best way to not believe that it is to just say that. Like, I don't know. Probably it wasn't God, but there was this weird thing that happened. Like, no, man. Like, God
Yeah.
didn't stop speaking. The Bible didn't fall out of the sky written in English to Americans in 2026. God didn't stop speaking back then. God continues to speak, and God continues to work in our lives.
Yeah.
It's true.
Absolutely.
It's so true.
I just had a really beautiful discussion because one thing I was thinking as we've been chatting here is how nature is such an incredible teacher of God's principles and mind and ways. And I had this really wonderful discussion with my girls the other day because we were talking about diversity. And so I was giving them the example of, well, when you go into a forest, you don't just see one tree and you don't just see one flower, you see all
Mm.
sorts of different ones. And to me, that tells us how much God loved diversity, right? Look at the natural world, there's tons of it, and it's all interconnected. And they actually need each other to survive and thrive in this environment. So to me, that's reflective of his heart and his goal and his image for our life here, right? Um,
100%.
yeah, there's just so many incredible life lessons and teachings if we just slow down enough to observe and kind of start pondering, some of those messages and clues that are right out here in the natural world in front of our faces.
I mean, not to mention that like plants are conscious and like I'm bringing
Yeah.
the weird shit. Okay. So like buckle up. Okay. But like, but
Joints
seriously,
again. Get your joints
no,
ready.
I'm 100% sober.
Smoke them if you got
No,
them.
I am naturally this bizarre. Okay. Just hang with me. But like,
Same.
I get really into reading articles about like how plants are intelligent, and I'm using like air quotes, but I think they are, right? Like based on what they're seeing. And they've studied like what you're saying, Rachel, like these super diverse systems in the forest where like one is maybe lacking nutrients and the other trees reach out with roots and give that tree nutrients. And it's like, why are we doing anything else but admiring how insane that is? And I love how you embrace nature as not only this like metaphor, but like what I would only assume is the pure energy of God that you feel in those spaces, right? Like you're getting out of this brick and mortar concept of a church and you're like, actually, let's go visit God while we're talking about God. And I think that's the coolest part.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is not my line, and I don't know who said it, but it was somebody that studies trees, and somebody asked them if they think trees are conscious. And this person said, "Well, I don't know, but we've never learned a new thing about trees and thought, oh, they're dumber than we thought they were." You know?
True.
Um,
They keep getting smarter, or we
Yeah.
keep getting smarter as we
Right.
understand them. But like the fact that you can talk to your plants and they do well, and like people
yeah,
who are quote unquote
Yeah.
not woo woo talk to their fucking house plant and they're like, it's doing so well. I'm like, that's the most woo woo thing you could do.
right, right.
Seriously.
And I
Oh.
think like what I was thinking about, and I used this phrase at some point a long time ago in a video, but like this sense that you both have that there is an energy at work and it is a divine energy. Um, it's not made up. It's not all in your head. It's backed by science. And in many ways, science is late to the party. Um,
Hmm.
Yeah.
quantum physics and stuff. I mean, I love when people are like, "I believe in science. I don't believe in God." I'm like, "Well, science
I
always changed."
know.
Like
You can't
quantum
believe
physics.
in God. You can't deny God if you really understand scientific principles. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like people find God in science because they're like, wait,
Mhm.
wait, there has to be like, we just posted something around Nicholas Tesla, Albert Einstein, all of
Yeah.
the like the smartest brains ever all come to the conclusion that there is this unknown, unseen force that governs all. And they can't quantify it. They can measure some aspects of it, but they know it exists, but they don't know what it is. And if that is not like divine mystery, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Will you tell us about your book that's coming out? Seriously though, I'm so intrigued by this.
Yeah, but I want to say first
Yeah.
that what we are talking about is not woo woo. I think it's true woo. Um,
Ooh,
you're welcome.
another coffee mug. We're getting them all.
Pete.
We're gonna have
Ooh,
a whole bunch
true
today.
woo.
Yeah.
Taps.
I mean, and what I absolutely love is that you guys are taking these two things and putting them together, and doing it a lot better than the church normally does. But when you look back and read some of the desert mothers and fathers, and people, God, I can't remember who it was, and they were like, "What would you do if you couldn't read the Bible?" And this is like somebody that we would know, a giant in the church way back in the day, they were like, I would walk outside and read the book of nature. Like
Oh
the
my
first
gosh.
testament is the testament of creation. That's how God spoke to humans first. Um,
Yeah.
and then we had the Old Testament and the New Testament. Um, but yeah, like the woo woo stuff is awesome. Um, when it's true woo, um, like you're talking about, I think, um, because some, like I say, people ask me like, "What do you do?" I just run this outdoor church, and I said, it's not like we're not out there dancing around the trees, holding hands naked. Like that's fun, but that's not, but that's not
Maybe we
church.
will one
Like
day for
no,
a
we won't.
special service.
100% not. No chance. That was a joke. Um, but what we are doing is taking and hoping to the elements of our tradition that are beautiful and generative, and setting them loose in this beautiful generative world, and
Totally.
coming together. Um, so the book is called Catching Hope: The Hidden Spiritual Wisdom of Fishing. I gave a presentation at the Wild Goose Festival on this. I'm a big fisherman, and I got back into it during COVID, with my dad. And at that point, I was ordained, and I looked at everything differently. I was like, "Oh, this whole thing is a spiritual practice," and that's not a new concept, but I was just looking at all of the elements of preparation and anticipation, which is very Advent-y. Advent, the
Mhm.
season of preparation and anticipation. I'm like, wow, the fishing is Advent, and in a way, all of life is Advent, is anticipating and being prepared and being ready for the coming, so that we can see what God really wants us to see in this world. Um, but fishing itself is an act of hope. Like you wouldn't go if you didn't hope to catch something. And there have been times when I really needed hope. I struggle, as a lot of people with ADHD do. Like I struggle with anxiety and depression. Those three things are kind of all melded together. And it's like, well, I'm going to go out and at the very least, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 hours on the edge of the water, and we start thinking about water, which is the movement of water is the oldest sound in the universe for us as Christians. That first statement of the Bible in the beginning, you know, um, there's a wind from God that blew over the face of the deep, and that means to me that whenever you're on the edge of the water, which is where you need to be when you're fishing, you are on the edge of God's fingertips, and wow, like what a beautiful place to be on the edge of God's fingertips, hoping that you can find something underneath the surface that is unseen, but is there. And wow, how much of that is like a life of faith, not a life of certainty all the time, but a life of faith that there is something under the surface of the reality that we see with our eyeballs, something under the surface of ourselves that we sometimes avoid or can't quite find. And in the process of knowing as much as you can about what you're trying to catch, right? So, and this is part of what church is really good for, what communities like yours are really good for, is helping people understand and recalibrate their vision so that when a fish does come, you're prepared, and you know the right bait for what you get. Um, I I started mulling these things over and was like, God, this is a presentation that came. There was an editor that came to that talk and said, "This is a book." It took me forever to write it, um, because I'm very exacting and hard on myself. But I'm really proud of the book because I think they're like when preparation and anticipation and hope and this, what do you do when you go out there for 8 hours and you don't catch anything? Well, first of all, you spend 8 hours in the natural world, so congratulations. Science tells us that
Mhm.
everything in our body resets when we're in water.
Yeah.
um, But you have to deal with patience, and I'm not always a patient person. So you get a lot of practice doing that, and then every now and again you get to catch something you never thought. And I love fishing in the ocean because, I mean, Lord, like there's so much
Yeah.
I
in there.
mean, talk
You
about
never
unknown
know.
Yeah.
elements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you never know what you're gonna get, right, when you pull it up. Yeah.
Oh, my dad and I we were trying to catch like a king mackerel. We ended up catching a hammerhead shark, which was like, like now we're real fishermen, like
Yeah,
the
legit.
hammerhead shark. That was
What did you
amazing.
do? Do you,
Yeah.
like, cut the line,
We
or, like, what do you
There's a
do?
lot of celebrating.
Well, of course,
Um,
naturally.
Actually, there's a lot of yelling and screaming because I don't hear out of one ear. My dad is like in his 80s, so he doesn't hear. So it's these two large men in a small boat yelling back and forth. And like you can't yell uh like without it sounding angry. Like you can't
Absolutely.
calmly yell. So then it's like move, like grab the net. It's like "Move," it's like you shut up, like immediately like father son stuff, yelling and
Yeah.
screaming. We finally got it in the boat, unhook it, and take some pictures and put it back in the water. But
Wow.
yeah,
So you, like, put your hand inside the hammerhead's mouth and unhooked it?
I want you to believe that I did that.
I do.
Um, I don't. I did not do that.
No
Um,
one needs to know. That's what happened.
What do
but
you do, though?
I
I
know.
wouldn't know.
I'm
I'd
very
be like, "Now
confused.
what?"
there's tools.
Okay.
There's like
Okay.
a squeezy thing with a little pinchy on the end. So you get the pinchy around the hook and you squeeze, and then you pull
Oh,
it
You
out.
get it
But I'll
out that
tell
way.
you that like holding, cradling a shark, and I probably a few,
oh,
like it's just this power, like this
Yeah.
raw. All they do is swim, and it
yeah.
is
Yeah.
just it's unbelievable how strong they are.
So
Wow.
strong. I mean, that is so cool, though. And I think, I don't know, I love what you're saying. And it kind of ties back to something you were saying before around, how we recognize this energy, or we see signs and synchronicities when you have that belief. And everything that you're saying about fishing requires belief, right? Like, I'm going to put all this effort in and I'm going to do all of these things on the held belief that I'm going to catch something. And even if you don't catch something that day, you will show up again and again and again because you still have belief, right? Like, it's such an interesting, is it an allegory? A metaphor. It's a metaphor of how spirituality is. And I think that's such a cool way to think about it. And it's not just this like one point in time realization of this spiritual beauty of fishing. It's like every single time you go, you are honoring and connecting to God. And that is what is so cool.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
also kept thinking about the verse in the Bible that was like, "You will be fishers of men," because I also had this
Yeah.
thought while you were talking of like, that's kinda how Jesus is with us too, patiently waiting, not knowing if we're willing to accept or see or believe, but yet showing up time after time after time, just waiting. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you could take that and apply it, but I love it. I have a nephew who's a huge fisherman, so I can't wait to get him this and he's 18, so I just think it'll be a great book for him. Yeah.
That's awesome. And Rachel, yeah, you touched on something, the conclusion of the book, which is that we are the fish that God is fishing for. And talk to church groups about this because the church is slowly dying.
Yeah.
And like everybody hates saying some people it's really triggering when they hear that, but like it is.
Hmm.
It's getting a lot smaller and it's not always getting more concentrated. Some people are like, wow, now the bad people are gone. It's like, no, we're all still struggling. But if we do want to grow and spread the gospel, if you want different fish, you need different bait. Um, and so, like, look around in mainline churches, we're really white. The Episcopal Church is like 93, 94% white. And we're getting older, like, we're super old. So, like, what's our bait? The way we've been doing it for 50 years. Okay. This is what we're catching. We're no longer catching young fish at all. And we also want more diverse fish. well, you need to change your bait if you want to catch different fish because different fish eat different shit. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
Jinx. Um, and so, but God does that for us. Like He's not going to give you, Rachel, the same stuff that that God. I said He, and I shouldn't have said that.
That's fine.
It slips in still.
We take no offense.
Yeah, we don't,
Well,
because like we use the same language. It's like
yeah.
we grew up in a traditional Christian environment, and God is a he and whatever. But we're also, we switch it up sometimes. We're like
Well,
they, she. We don't know.
mhm, and that's
We
all
don't think they have
true.
a gender.
I don't think so. Male and female, Genesis 1:27, and that and in there like kind of holds so much in the middle. But
Mhm.
these are still biases that the church itself needs to deconstruct and transform
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to have a full understanding, which we never will. But yes, God is fishing for us.
Yeah.
Um, and
Do
so
you think the church will make a resurgence? Like, do you think that it will evolve and come back around and more people will be able to find a faith community that resonates with them?
I think, uh, no,
No, I don't.
It's all right.
I don't know if we do
Thank you for
either.
being honest.
I think yes and no. What you are doing is a part of what the new church is going to look like. I think it will become nodal. So when you want, and I just need to say, I love like inside high
Mhm.
liturgy stuff sometimes. Like
Mhm.
I love it. I just know that a lot of people aren't going to come there anymore. They see that
Yeah.
and they're like, I don't want that. But when you want a high liturgy, you can go there. You've got that. When you want to worship in the wild places and have that sort of expansive experience, you come worship with us. When you want small groups of people who have gone through the same thing and are trying to transform, you're going to go to your group. And
Mhm.
I think a danger there is that we still need real deep relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
so we need to commit and not take our entire spiritual life a la carte.
Mhm.
Because when we do that, God ends up starting to look a little bit more like us, and so we need that commitment to Christian community. But I think that there needs to be more options on the buffet table for people, and the church has got to be more courageous.
Yeah.
Of
Mhm.
like, my God,
Authentic is the word that comes to mind. I feel
yeah,
like authenticity is what people are really craving, because when you see a religious leader saying something that, listen, like, you can believe when someone believes what they're saying, right?
yeah.
And sometimes, like, we're just performing, we're just reciting, and we're not feeling. And I think people right now, more than ever, in a time that we don't always know what's real, are craving authenticity. And instead of us just looking at leaders of like, you are a leader if you do these three things, and then that's it, you become this leader. You can also earn that leadership through lived experience. And I think a lot of times people want, yes, they want somebody who's authoritative and, can provide guidance and provide scriptural evidence and all of that. But they also want to open themselves up to like realness. Like, hey, I listen to Pete and he sounds like I do. He swears, like there's connection. You are
All right,
unapologetically,
mom.
no, well, sorry, not sorry, but you are unapologetically, authentically you. And I think people crave that in their spirituality practice as well. And
Mhm.
when we see this huge divide of like, I when I go to church, I need to be in my Sunday best, and oh, my kid's crying and they should be crying, or I have to go to the cry room, right? It's like we show up and we have to be this completely different person when really we should be the good, the bad, the ugly. Like, I am here to show up exactly who I am. And that's never really been an option. So now it's like, we really, the community that we're starting really was because of the floods of messages. Like, I didn't know that there were people like me, and I have nowhere to go. Where do I go?
Yeah.
And I think that that could be, to your point, this evolution of what church becomes. It's still rooted in community. It's still rooted in faith. And it's especially rooted in Jesus and authentic spirituality that can be taken out of this box that we have been told for decades and centuries that this is how it is. And it's empowering. I think it's scary for people too, because
Yeah.
they're like, God, it feels like I'm doing something so wrong, even though intuitively it feels exactly right. Right. Like, I bet there's plenty of people. I'm sure you get this. Maybe you don't. I'm curious. Like, do people ever like think what you're doing in your uh nature church is like heretical or like pagan
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah, like see,
I
like
find
that's
that
like
so
insane to
interesting.
me.
It
Yeah.
was a threat. It was a threat. So it started. That was awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing that again
Oh,
when it's all over and I
oh
can read
good.
it.
I'm glad.
Yeah, thank you. And that authenticity is really, really, really important. And I try my best, um, to lead with my own story and my own imperfect life.
Hmm.
Um, oh shit, what was I gonna say?
Oh, I thought you were gonna cry. I was like, it's okay, Pete.
I would, I do, I do often.
um, let's see if three people with raging ADD can. I
It's
know.
like,
I'm
what
like,
was I thinking? I
wait.
don't know, but we're having a good time.
Oh,
Oh,
totally.
here it is.
Okay. Oh, we found it. Go.
I did want to say that the future of the church, followers of Jesus never needed power or empire to get together and to spread the good news. And so it will never die. But I think the church is going to need to take risks. And some of these things are going to grow and survive, and some of them aren't. But also, it's this community that you're creating, this podcast, and your videos and your messages are part of what the new church looks like. And that's like really, really exciting. There's a book called People of the Way, and in it, the author describes um, it's like a recovering Episcopal identity. It's sort of a niche thing, but highly recommend. He talks about on farms they used to have these things called demonstration plots, where you would try out new crops and new farming techniques on a field right by the road that goes by your farm, so that everybody that goes by can see these new crops and this new farming techniques that you're trying as a demonstration. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing right now in different ways, is
Uh-huh.
demonstrating how to live a Christian life, how to build Christian community in ways that are authentic to Jesus,
Mhm.
which doesn't always mean being authentic to the church. And that's
Mhm.
a big place where the church can grow. So to answer your question, I started this service at my former church and I learned a ton there. I had a boss and a mentor who was very, very traditional. I learned so much from him, um, so that I can play jazz instead of just making noise with our liturgy. And,
Mhm.
if you don't know the scales, you can't play jazz. You just make noise.
You also play jazz?
No.
I want to tell you, yes, I play
Rachel's
guitar.
like, "Jason, for fuck's sake,
I
keep up.
play guitar.
Skeet up." What if he just
You guys are so fun. We gotta hang out more.
He's just gonna break out his little jazz flute.
I'm like the smartest, dumbest person you've ever met in your
No.
life. But we do wanna hang out. We'll put a pin on that. We'll figure that out.
Jason wants to
But,
smoke a joint and play the jazz flute with you. Here's what she just said
um,
in no
um,
uncertain terms.
but sometimes doing something new can be a threat to the
Yes.
Yeah.
establishment. And it ended up being that. It was like, what you guys are doing out there is not real. Like it's not actually real church because you're not
Yeah.
saying the words. And so I know that. I feel that deeply from time to time. But what we do is actually very traditional. So I've stopped using that traditional versus non-traditional, because I was like, wait a minute, like what we do is traditional. It just feels different for some people, but every Episcopal church has a baptismal font, right? And this is true of a lot of mainline churches. This is a little thing where we hold the little babies and we do the little thing. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, where is our baptismal font? It's the river.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
I know. And I was doing it for a couple years before I realized, like, oh, it's the river is our baptismal font. Now, we haven't done a baptism in the river, although I've done a river baptism and an ocean baptism, which is, I think, the best.
Going back to the OG, right? Like,
The
Yes.
OG.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, but when you think about it that way, like that's actually a more traditional
Yeah.
view of what baptism is, not just because Jesus was baptized in a river and a lot of other people were, but a river, like what symbolizes what comes before us and what comes after us, and this sense of the communion of saints, which is what we're baptized into, is not just this group at this moment. It is all of the people that came before and all of the people who will come after. And so you're
Mm.
caught up into this thing that again is wild and unruly and
Hmm.
powerful, sometimes overflows its banks. But that, I think, is a traditional view of what baptism is.
For
Um,
sure.
but, but people, yeah, plenty of people think we're just playing outside in the woods and it doesn't really count.
Well,
It's
you can do that too,
it's
but it's
yeah, it's
way
funny
deeper.
how change really bothers people, you know?
It's just a natural human response, I
Or
think.
just like unfamiliarity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like anything new is
It's crazy,
yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
what we've oh yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
Well, so yes, that's just 100% true. It's human phenomenon. I'm not immune to it. Um, but even in my church where this first started as a service, now it's just its own church. That's my full-time job. Um, and it's a full-time church. But there are people that have been formed in the old way, in the inside, very traditional way, who really resonate with doing this way
Mhm.
outside. And it's like Henry Ford said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. But he built a car instead.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't know that their soul is looking for something until they have the opportunity to participate in it. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, actually, I was going to church out of habit, and
Mm,
now I go because I want to go.
Yes.
totally.
Yes.
Totally.
It's true.
This made me think of how so much of what people want in church is energy. Like,
Mhm.
and because and I think most people who are spiritual can tangibly feel love. And a couple weeks ago, with some girlfriends, went to a Hispanic church, and they had like an absolute operation of food packing for families, like run by 50 women. And I was like, holy cow, like this is unbelievable. And I showed up and I had my cart, and they had a loop where they were giving fresh, real food, chicken breast, eggs, bread, peppers, like real food for these families that haven't been able to leave their homes. And I threw my sunglasses on because I'm just crying. And I'm like, why am I crying? Because I just I totally felt God's presence.
Mhm.
And that was church for me. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I have not felt God in a community like this. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I've ever really felt it like that. People coming together and doing something just because, and really just out of love and devotion and wanting to love your neighbor. I was like, this is just the total embodiment of Christ. And I don't know. I just feel like
Wow.
we can make more environments like that for people. And when people like look at a church steeple and they're just like, that imagery has insinuations for me. I was told I wasn't good enough, or I was told that I'm gay and I don't belong, or I got a divorce and that's a real big no-no, or whatever people tell themselves that they don't belong. They spend 1 minute in that environment and like, that's it. right? And I think like coming full circle, God fishing for us, like maybe our change in bait changes over time. Or like we
Yeah,
just need
it should.
something completely different. It doesn't matter, but like God knows how to meet his people where they are. And sometimes it just takes like a non-traditional approach or an alternative approach to just be like, didn't like it there, but I'm not going to stop looking. And I think
Yes.
people who are
Yeah.
creating environments like you and nature and being like, hey, the people that don't even believe in Jesus, but are maybe curious, you are so welcome here. Like, that's
Mhm.
what we should be doing. And we have so
Yeah.
many people, it just shocks me. People will find us and they're like, I'm actually not Christian. I have always been really on like the new age side. However, I'm really sort of intrigued by Jesus and you guys are making not making me feel judged for being into the stuff I am, and you're opening up a door to somewhere I always wanted to go and never felt like I could step in, right? So,
But,
yeah,
yeah.
I think church is going to look so different. Or maybe it's just like beers in a field and singing hymns. I don't know. That sounds really like a sweet church to me.
There's another theological thing that I actually learned from somebody named Diana Butler Bass. Does that name ever cross your
I feel
desk
like I've heard
before?
of that one, but I don't know
Yeah.
how.
She's awesome.
Okay.
And she's a historian and a writer and a Christian, written many really good books. There's a really good Substack. She talks about like this sort of conflict between Peter and Mary Magdalene, who was actually more of a leader in the church than we realize.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um, but
Mhm.
that, and then um, that the cross, I might be getting this slightly wrong, but the cross might not be the best symbol for Christianity, but actually the table. And Jay says you're talking about gathering people together, and she says like it's the table, like
Oh
it's
my
the
gosh, I
you're talking
love
about
that.
making meals for people, and yeah, so like what if the
Oh,
new
that just
symbol,
like
or at least an additional symbol, is not the cross but the table? And I really think that that is a theological shift. Again, it's not mine; it's Diana Butler Bass's. If I ascribe to it. And I think ultimately it's God's, that the table is what gathers us together, not the cross.
that resonates so deeply.
So much. We are sometimes obsessed with the sin and the sacrifice and the forgiveness. Like that story, it's like that's the only thing, that we focus on. And it becomes this like, oh, I cannot falter on my path because of what was done for me. And if I do, then I go to hell and I don't make it to salvation. It's like such a I mean, listen, I'm not minimizing what Jesus did for us. Like, please don't mishear me. But it's like we tend to forget everything else. Everything else. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about all the time, I'm like, Jesus like healed people with his hands and like kind of told us how to do that. That's
Yeah.
pretty sweet. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody
Should be.
talks about it. Like, think about that. And yes, I love that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I I am struggling a little bit with like, did God send Jesus as a sacrifice?
I don't think so.
Can you help me? Like, I've just been, I don't know. I'm noodling on all this and I'm
Yeah.
struggling with
We're
like
still
the,
transforming, Pete.
the resurrection, and was that the intent the whole time? And I just don't get that of like, I don't know, the sacrificial son part.
I mean, if our theology is not growing, like you said earlier, it's dead. So every year, every 5 years, like our understandings of all this stuff should change. And honestly, the church's understanding hasn't changed in a really, really long time. But I had this experience at the Water and Wilderness Church, and I hold the gifts up, the bread and the wine. And I almost never say this, but I said, these are the gifts of God for the people of God, which is straight out of the Book of Common Prayer. And then we say, take these and remember that Christ died for you, and feed on him in your hearts by faith with thanksgiving. And I said those words, and I'm not sure why, because I don't actually like them very much. And I can write a paper about how that might be true, but I don't think that's the most important part of the Eucharist or communion. Christ died for you, so you should feel bad about it. And like, straighten up and stay in line. I think communion is about Christ living for us.
Mhm.
And so I stopped after I said that, and I said, but also remember that Christ lives for you, that love and justice and mercy and forgiveness, they live for you and with you and in you. And that is
Mhm.
the eternal life that John talks about, that we're all hoping for. Not a life after we die. I think everybody gets that divine embrace in some way. Nobody really knows. But I believe in my heart of hearts that this redemption is real and true, and we come back to God. But Jesus living for us and with us and in us is is really what we're supposed to be holding on to, not the fact that he died to kind of save us from an eternal conscious torment that I just don't believe ever existed.
Mhm.
Um, and so Richard Rohr said this. I'm trying not to name drop. I just don't want to take credit for really cool shit that I didn't
We
think of.
love it.
Um, and and he talks about this relationship that God has with us is not about sin. It's about
Mhm.
healing. And there's a big difference. And I always talk about in every service the Adam and Eve story, right? And this allegory and these archetypes, Adama, meaning earth, and Eve, meaning breath and life giver, right? They were supposed to be destroyed when they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but they weren't destroyed. And that story is not about Eve did something bad, so we should subjugate women for the rest of eternity. Like the great thing about that story um, is that God walks through the garden and looks for them, and that is the crux of that story. Because original sin and all that stuff's not in the Bible, but when we run from God, which we do, um,
Mhm.
that God walks through the garden and asks, "Where are you?" and and throughout the narrative, the canonical narrative of the long view of Scripture, it's this exile in return. We kind of run away, and God comes relentlessly after us over and over and over again. And that's the miracle. The miracle isn't that we feel so bad that Jesus saved us from fiery hell, which is not a real thing. Um, that's not what this thing is about. This
Mhm.
thing is about God, God's economy and grace that just keeps coming no matter what, over and over and over again. Um, so I just, it doesn't matter that we sin.
Yeah.
We do. It's our lives are better when we do less of it, and there are things that we can do to, you know, but this is about consciousness,
Mhm.
and um, and I don't think we can be fully conscious if we're guilty and shameful all the time.
Yeah.
Um, like we just can't, and we've had 2,000 years of a religion that was based on that,
Mhm.
and look where we are.
It
We have
yeah,
there's
it
millions of people that have been murdered because they didn't believe the right thing.
yeah.
Um, like
Yeah, yeah,
maybe we
yeah.
haven't gone. So, Rachel, does that help answer?
Yes, it does. It does. And I just go back to, like, the energetic. We talk a lot about the divine within and trusting the Holy Spirit and those nudges and just your own instincts, and it's like the energetic just feels so different, right? The when you describe what you just did, it's peace, it's loving, it's the fruits of the Spirit versus fear, shame, condemnation, judgment, you know? And I've always just struggled with that, something that feels so opposite of who God is and what God is, which is love, and perfect love casts out fear. So how can we have this running theme of fear and shame built into what is supposed to be God? It just those 2 can't coexist in my mind and heart. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
If we told the true stories about God, I think more people would be like, well, yeah, that my soul resonates with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really resonate with he didn't do the right things. I mean, Jesus, we boiled all this stuff down to 10 commandments, and that was too many. And
Yeah.
Moses like comes down and he looks and he like breaks the tablets and has to go back up and get more. And so many of those, all like those commandments were like, love God, and then like don't do a bunch of stuff,
Mhm.
right? Like, and Jesus was like, hey, just two things, and really just one, love. That's
Yeah.
it. That is it. And I don't know why we don't understand that.
We overcomplicate it all the time.
Yeah.
I know.
Liberation theologians would say Jesus only really understood from the margins, and that he was murdered by the state. It's a state execution um, that has nothing to do. It didn't die for our sins. He just died because of our sins.
Yes.
Because the
Yeah.
message of hope and love and joy and healing is threatening to empire.
I'm learning so much from this podcast, and I love it. We've had like
Rachel's the biggest fan of our podcast. She's our
awesome.
number one fan.
I highly endorse the Spirit Outspoken podcast. It's very good, really educational.
This was so
All
much
right.
fun. Okay, so remind us really quick. Your book's coming out when?
May 12th.
May 12th.
All right.
Okay, you guys, you heard that? We will let you know. We will post a link when Pete's book is out, and we want copies, Pete. Okay.
You got it.
Okay. You're
All right.
awesome. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.